Sometime this past week, I wanted to spend some time counting how many times I was communicating, or at the end of communication. And the results of that were I lost track pretty fast. But that's a really testament to the fact that we as humans communicate all the time. We're always communicating. So if the communication is a thing we do all the time, I think it's really important that we learn how to do it well. Because communication impacts us, impacts the people around us, and impacts our ability to be successful at life. So the first thing I want to talk about is the 5 basic principles of communication. And the reason I want to bring that up first is those 5 basic principles. By understanding those, we can sort of understand better the significance of communication in our lives and in life in general. So the first principle is communication's inescapable. We're always communicating, whether it's through speech or nonverbals, but we're always sending out some sort of message by how we interact with the world around us. So it's really important to take advantage of that and to understand that. The second thing is communication is irreversible. I might be able to amend something I said or apologize, but I can't ever take that back. That's impossible. The third thing is communication symbolic. Words are symbols for what they describe, of course, and nonverbals are symbols for like emotions or feeling. The fourth thing is communication is contextual. What I say in one situation might be interpreted completely different in another situation. The last thing is communication is complicated. Like I mentioned with these past 4 principles, so many things can be used to describe communication and the process that it is. So much goes into it, which is why it's so important to learn how to do it well and understand its importance so that we can succeed in life in general. So I want to take a step back and talk about how communication is inescapable, like I mentioned. But that means it's something that we run into all the time in our daily lives. Our lives are interconnected with communication. Now, a lot of different settings are settings in which we communicate, like academic settings. I'm communicating in an academic setting right now by filming the speech for my class. We also communicate in civic settings, like communicating in an HOA meeting or communicating when we're on jury duty. We also use communication in social settings. We communicate to meet people and to get to know people and grow relationships with people. And of course, we communicate in work settings. We work with others and we speak and communicate to collaborate with them. Communication is something that happens all the time in our lives. And it's so interconnected to what we do. And it also impacts the people around us so much. That kind of takes me to my next point. Communication meets our needs and the needs of other people. Communication is something that we are wired to do as people because we are wired to have social connections with others. That takes a variety of different forms. For one, we're wired to have social relationships, like I mentioned. We're wired to connect with others and get to know others on a deeper level. We are also wired to have work with people. We use communication like I can communicate with someone at a fast food restaurant and communicate to them, hey, can you help me make some food or get food? We communicate to achieve goals together with humans. In that case, the goal I need to meet was getting food for me. We also communicate to meet our physical needs. That kind of goes in the same thing. Babies communicate when they cry. Crying means they have some sort of physiological need that isn't being met. And lastly, communication helps us meet the need of how we present ourselves. We want to be seen in a certain light as people. So we communicate in order to put ourselves out there as maybe a funny person or maybe an introverted person that we want to be left alone. But we communicate all the time because it meets our needs and the needs of people around us. So, since communication is this thing that meets our needs, since it's something that we do all the time in our life, and understanding those principles, communication is inescapable, irreversible, symbolic, contextual, complicated, we can understand that there's so much that goes into communication. There's so many ways that is intermingled with our lives. So if we want to succeed at life, if we want to do well, if we want to thrive at life, it's important that we learn to communicate well because our success hinges on our ability to communicate.